whew, ah, god damn, does this movie just have horrible writing. Honestly, I love the series, and go watch them. Yo, what's up? Welcome to Ruby Cinders. My name is Jimmy. I'm the co-owner, and welcome to another Freestyle, a show where basically I just pontificate about different things and give my opinions about various topics off the top of my head. There's no rehearsal, there's no script. It's just me rambling on like a jackass. So today we're revisiting my breakdown of Friday the 13th. Now, last time I went over part 1. Today, I'm going to go over part 2. So if you like the content, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And the best way you can support us is by shopping at our stores. We have a shop here in Tallahassee, Florida. We also have a website, rubycinders.com. We also have a shop on Instagram and Facebook that you can help support us. Our full inventory is on our website, or in our store. So that's the best place. But if you're on Instagram, click and shop. And right here, we've got this nifty mug, Friday the 13th mug. And of course, I'm a camper today. Well, a camp counselor today. This nifty shirt here is also for sale, as well as this hat. Although Batman has nothing to do with fucking Jason Voorhees. But I don't have a Jason hat, and I love Batman. So, c'est la vie. So, Friday the 13th, part 2. So where to begin? I'm going to be honest, I'm not the biggest fan of this one in particular. I respect it and love it for it introducing Jason Voorhees as the main villain for the rest of the series. But in all honesty, I'm really surprised that even back then it gained such acclaim with horror fans. And I'll go over why. So in the original movie, the makeup for its time and even for decades after held up. It was great. And the kills were really neat. But in this one, the sequel's supposed to amp it up, and honestly, I didn't notice that. So we'll go through the plot of the movie, and I'll tell you where. And of course, future Jimmy will show clips of it, of what I'm talking about. This breakdown shows clips. The other freestyles don't, typically. So of course, in the previous movie, it was Jason Voorhees' mom, Pamela Voorhees, who was the villain. She lost her son, Jason, in the 50s due to negligent camp counselors. So it was her mission to never let that camp open again. And she sabotaged and murdered people there over the course of the years. And in part 1 is where we see them trying to resurrect the camp again. And she systematically takes out everyone involved. And in the end, you find out who the killer is. You never know it's her until the end. You find out, oh shit, it's a woman, and it's this mother who is essentially taking revenge on the murderers or the people that she felt responsible. She's crazy, so she thinks, she holds everybody responsible. So in the end of the movie, you see the final gag, you see Jason pop up as a kid, but that's supposed to be meant more as like a dream sequence of Alice. It didn't really happen. So in the part 2, we pick up where Alice is, and she's got PTSD and trying to, cope with everything and just kind of taking some time off for herself.
Come on, Mom, we've been through all of this before. I just have to put my life back together, and this is the only way I know how.
You see her being stalked, and then you see, when she goes into the fridge, you see Pamela Voorhees' head in the fridge, which is, Alice was the one that responsible for killing Jason's mother. And then at that point, Jason kills her. You never see Jason looks like for a while in the movie. So what we do is after Alice is killed, we pick up where the new crop of camp counselors are, and you see the head camp counselor, and he's telling all his staff about the legend of Camp Blood, Camp Crystal Lake. And so in it is where we get the backstory of how essentially an adult Jason comes to be.
I'm gonna give it to you straight about Jason. His body was never recovered from the lake after he drowned. He's still out there, some sort of demented creature, surviving in the wilderness, full grown by now. Legend has it that Jason saw his mother beheaded that night.
So in the first one, he's supposedly drowned. Well, I guess he didn't. And for some reason, he didn't come back to the camp to try and find his mom, which you think logically, you know, a potentially autistic kid would try and come back to the camp, but he doesn't. But he just kind of lies in wait for years, like a couple of decades, I guess, lives in the woods. They don't explain it. So I guess what you're supposed to infer is that he couldn't find himself back to the camp, but yet he witnessed his mother being beheaded. So he found a way back home. None of it makes any fucking sense when you think about it. But hey, it's just a slasher flick, so who gives a shit, right? I give it a pass, suspension of disbelief, whatever, fine. Jason didn't drown as a kid, then just grew up in the woods taking care of himself, and then saw his mother get beheaded. So now he is stalking anyone who is in the vicinity of the camp and the lake. That's the legend. And as we see in the movie, the legend is true. We see the main female character. The series, Friday the 13th, essentially has, it has the final girl. The main character is a female for the most part. She's got her, you know, close-knit group of friends, depending on, you know, which movie we're talking about. In this one, it's her, I guess, ex-boyfriend, but they seem to be rekindling, which is the head camp counselor. I believe his name is James, but don't quote me on that because I don't fucking remember. Future Jimmy will tell us what his name is. So it's, my problem with it is how the kills are executed. The gore is less than in the first one, which in sequels, you're supposed to amp it up, traditionally speaking. And in two specific kills, Jason uses a machete, but you can clearly see he's using the dull end to slice their throats, which doesn't make any sense. We'll show you. It's just, what? How? Like, and you see it, like, is he superhuman and can slice your throat with like the dull end? It makes no sense. Like, okay, did they use a real prop and that's why it was for safety's sake? I get it, but there are other ways to show that kind of death scene without just using the dull end. It looks fucking stupid. Like, I love the series. It's one of my favorite, you know, series, but in part two, they dropped the ball, especially considering how high the bar was in part one with Tom Savini's work. And I just, what the fuck, man? Like, how back then that movie was so popular enough to get a third one to continue on is beyond me. But it did, so great because that series introduced us to Jason and thus creating the horror icon that we have today. In the movie, he doesn't have his hockey mask. That is in part 3 where he gets his mask. In part 2, he just has a bag over his head with one eye cut out. Now, when I saw it, I didn't see the entire film as a kid. One, I was like a baby when it was in the theater. I saw clips on like HBO or TBS or whatever when they reran it during Halloween or during Friday the 13th, you know, marathons. I would catch it on cable, and I noticed the bag on his head. And I had, you know, because I watched this, I'd seen the movies kind of not in sequence. I was really confused as to why he's got a bag over his head, and I thought he looked like a fucking moron. And he he does. But what happened is, and later on in life, come to find out that that's essentially an homage to the movie The Town That Dreaded Sundown, I believe is the name of the title, which is a great movie, a little silly. The remake, I think, is better that they did. But The Town That Dreaded Sundown was a movie that was released in the 70s that arguably is like one of the first slashers as well, that was based on a true story. And in it, the villain, the killer has a sack over his head. And if I'm not mistaken, that is what any of the surviving victims said they saw. If I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong. Future Jimmy will let me know if I'm a fucking moron or what, and he'll probably call me one too, because, you know, I love to talk shit about myself. So anyway, so, you know, knowing history, that it makes, you know, I can see the homage, and anyone, an adult back then, would have known that. So I don't want to knock the baghead situation, because I was just ignorant, an ignorant kid of history and of horror movie history as well at the time. So the mask though, the hockey mask in part 3 on it, of course, is way better. There's just something about a facelessness that is just intrinsically scary. It's really what made Michael Myers so scary, because of it's just this kind of dead eye, you know, expressionless mask that he wore. And with Jason, I felt later on that it was even better. And I'll go into more detail when I cover part 3, when we get the mask, because I don't want to sit here and ramble on about his fucking mask, about a movie that doesn't have the mask. He's Baghead Jason in this movie. That's who he is. So, and he's got one eye. So how does he have depth perception? How does he murder these people pretty well without 2 fucking eyes? I don't know. The movie makes no fucking sense whatsoever. It's the way they handled the Legend of Jason just was, they didn't even think about it. It boggles my mind still how this movie was was popular enough to spawn a sequel. But hey, it is what it is. So that's what the movie is really well, you know, I would say, in my opinion, what makes it a landmark movie is that it introduces us to Jason. That's really what it's known. But honestly, the original is like monumentally better. It's got a decent, you know, ABC plot line that is coherent, and isn't like in any way, you know, asinine. It tracks all the way through, I think. But this one just doesn't. And even like, even in towards the end, you know, the main character, woman, she comes up with this idea. Basically, she kind of psychoanalyzes Jason with, in my opinion, no prior knowledge of him. She just makes it up.
What if there is a Jason? I mean, let's try to think beyond the legend, put it in real terms. I mean, what would it be like today? Some kind of out-of-control psychopath? A child trapped in a man's body? And you know, the only person I'd ever known was his mother. Never went to school, so he never had any friends. I mean, she was everything to him. I mean, I doubt Jason would have even known the meaning of death. Or at least until that horrible night. He must have seen the whole thing happen. He must have seen his mother get killed. And he must be out there right now crying for a return. For resurrection.
Now, she ends up being right on her assumptions, but how? I don't fucking know. How she psychoanalyzes him so spot on is beyond me. It's kind of a, you know, in really what it is, it's a way to, you know, explain away later of how she's able to kind of get a one-up on him. It's bad writing, let's be honest. And I know a lot of horror movies are horribly written, and a lot of the Friday the 13th are. The movies are about the kills and the special effects and the suspense, not necessarily about the story. It's a ABC, you know, kind of, here's the kids, who gives a shit about them? Let's watch them die by this monster. But woof, God damn, does this movie just have horrible writing. So she, and I'm here trashing it, but honestly, I love the series and go watch them. Like, they're iconic movies. But this one is just, honestly, it's on par with part 8 and part 7 in how badly written it is. I don't know. When I revisit part 5 and thinking about it, I may say that it is even part 5, maybe even better, potentially. And I may get blasted for that. And it probably deserved. I could be wrong. Maybe there's something I'm missing about part 2 that made it so great. But aside from introducing us to Jason and an homage to the town that treaded sundown, I really don't see any redeeming value to it, but it did. And I'm glad that it got made, because Jason, even though Friday the 13th, the series, isn't, I would say, the best well-crafted horror series, it is one of my favorites, and Jason is definitely like my favorite slasher. But it's more has to do with just like what I said, the kills and just his look. He's a menacing, threatening villain. And he continued to be so. So in the movie, you know, she absorbs in this, you know, legend of him dying as a kid when he didn't die, and living out on his own, and then witnessing his mother die. So like, you know, I believe they use the R word to talk about him. Of course, this is like 1981 or whatever the fuck. So of course they're using words, you know, like the R word in it. And when really he's autistic, and he's also deformed, but obviously a physical deformity doesn't make one cognitively impaired either. But this was, you know, the 80s, and the physical deformity basically was a signal that he was, you know, on the spectrum. It's likely that he was autistic, if we really want to like psychoanalyze Jason in the universe of Friday the 13th, because it seems like he's a one-track mind. It's not like his mother, who was mentally ill and was broken when her helpless son died, or what she thought her helpless son died, you know, and that broke her spirit, and she was probably already mentally ill to begin with. And then that just, you know, sent her over the edge to cause her on this killing spree. So that was the excuse. And then in part 2, it's that he's a simple-minded man with like the mind of a child still, and saw his mother die. So he's just taking it out on any fucking buddy that comes in his way. And that's what he does. And so her bright idea in the end of the movie is, you know, to don the look of her mother. So they find in one of the cabins is where Jason apparently was living, or that's kind of his home base, where he preserved his mother's head on this kind of altar with like candles around it. So he's got some sort of like, you know, ability to take care of himself. Fuck. I mean, you know, he died at 12 or 13. The guy's, you know, in his 30s at this point. If he drowned or got lost in the 50s and then came back in like 1981, because, you know, we do establish timelines in part 1 of when he died. I think in 57, he's got a capability of taking care of himself. So he's not a moron. He is capable, but I guess simple-minded is what the woman, you know, assumes. So the guy Jason kept the sweater. And so when she stumbles upon this cabin, she recognizes what it is. You know, she's very smart. I think they maybe established her as like a psych major in college. So that kind of, you know, is the reasoning why she's psychoanalyzing him. Now, but it doesn't seem like she's got any kind of notion about him, just the fact that he's a kid who witnessed his mother dying, who's maybe simple-minded. And to use nicer words, they didn't use nicer words back then to describe his mental capabilities. So she puts on the sweater and like talks to him as if she is his mother. And so then we're led to believe that Jason thinks that's actually his mother.
You've done your job well, and Mommy is pleased. That's a good boy. Now come to Mommy. Come on.
So like, is he a dog? Is he that easily fooled? Like, the guy's perfectly capable of taking care of himself. He, you know, knows who his mother is, but yet, and knows she's dead. Her fucking head fell off. He got cut off. He's preserved it, but yet believes that now this is his mother because she's wearing the fucking sweater. Are we like? It's just monumentally stupid. Like, oh my God, you know, what the fuck? It is what it is. That's what it is. So she gets, you know, she's able to convince him momentarily so that he doesn't immediately kill her, but she kind of moves and then he sees the head and then he's like, oh, wait a minute. No, that's my mom. That's my mom's head. This bitch over here, she's not my mom. And then he goes to like go after her and then they get into a fight and like, it is what it is. She survives. And then we get to see Jason maskless. And of course, that doesn't track either because we see him bald as a kid, but now he has hair, like, but it's patchy. So I guess general consensus amongst us fans is, since both of those times we see Jason were imagined by the victims, that's not necessarily what he looked like. Or maybe, I don't know. Because when we see in part 1, Jason's mother visualize her son drowning and calling out for help, he's got the deformed face and the bald head. Then when Alice has her dream of Jason popping out, he's got the same face and bald. And then in this movie, there's a final gag at the end in the same way they did the gag in the first movie where, you know, she's safe. She thinks, you know, he's been killed because he takes a machete, I believe, to the shoulder, like deep, right? And that's how she runs off to escape. And so we think that she's safe and, you know, oh, there's someone coming to the door and, you know, and it's just a puppy. It's the little doggy. You find out that the dog never, you know, there was a dog established in the movie and it never died. It was there. Because Jason doesn't kill animals. And so You open the door, it's, oh, okay, it's a false flag. It's just the doggy, oh, yay. And then boom, bursting through the window, we see Jason. And in that moment, you see the same deformed face, but he's got like hair and a beard. And then she wakes up, and that never happened. So technically, I guess him having hair, it's not canon. Because in part 3, we see what he really looks like. And it's an adult version of the part 1. Because his look then, when his mother's visualizing, is what is canon. So in this sequence of events in the movie, that is what the excuse is as to why he looks one way in part 2 and another way in part 3, when essentially those two movies take place, I think, back to back. I believe part 2, 3, and 4 are like almost sequential. There isn't like years separated like there is from part 1 to 2. There's like a year separation. And of course, there's a prologue in the first movie that was like, I think, a decade or so before. That's Friday the 13th part 2 and my thoughts. I know I just shat all over the movie, but I highly recommend you watch it, because it's if you want to get into the series, you got to watch it so you can see how you establish Jason. It's a fun romp, just despite, all the shit talking that I've just made about, it's fun, even just to trash it and giggle at it, smoke a bowl and watch it, have a couple drinks or watch it, or be sober, fucking who cares? Do what you do. I'm not here to judge. Just don't hurt anybody. Just watch people get hurt. So that's Friday the 13th part 2. Hopefully you've enjoyed this one, because I want to do the entire series, including the remakes. So that's about the size of it, Big House. Peace.